And today I want to walk you through an example of how you could get your online store e-commerce business to over $10,000 a month. I'm going to present my screen right now, and I'm going to walk you through this forecast example of what that could look like and a number of the things that you would need to do in order to make that happen. So first things first is when you start out, you of course can't pay yourself that much. You need to make sure that you drive a lot of revenue into the business before you can give yourself a cut of that. So in this example, you start by only paying yourself around $500 a month. Let's say, for example, your materials, supplies, and shipping. So this is all under the inventory fees column. This would be about $2,000. So what that means is if you purchase, let's say a shirt, for example, or a number of shirts for your clothing line, and each of those, let's say, cost, $10, as long as you don't have any other extra fees, that's kind of, you could get 200 shirts, let's say, for that example. But like I said, it's going to be unique to your business, depending on how much it costs to supply whatever good that you are selling. For example, like you may be selling, let's say, an essential oil, and you have to take into account how much the bottles cost, as well as how much the actual oils that you put into the bottles, the fragrance, whatever it may be, that all has to be looped into one, so you can determine how much your inventory fees are going to be for your business. The next is under media. So the way that I would recommend that you launch it is the first month, I would spend about $1,000 on social media. So that's Meta, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, whatever makes the most sense for your business. And then about $1,000 in Google ads. This is really a foundational budget. So this isn't going to drive like a whole bunch of sales. What this is it's going to allow you to kind of set up the foundation for your business and your company. Make sure that you get some brand awareness going for your brand so that people are aware of what you're providing, what you're selling, etc. Apps and technology. So if you're using a platform like Shopify, that costs for the basic plan, I think it's around like $30 to $35, $40. But also you're going to use certain apps to run your business. So if you have a subscription, for example, you're going to have a certain fee for that. Maybe you're running, an upsell funnel or something like that, where you have another app, you may have a review app that you need to pay for as well. So in general, I think a $200 budget for that usually covers the basics. If you'd like me to go into more detail about which apps I'd recommend using for e-commerce stores, I'm happy to do that. But this, like I said, this is just a foundational budget. So in this example, your sales, of course, are the number of orders. Some people call it orders too, depending on where you're kind of the process of how you're building everything out, but this is the number of orders. So for example, if I am one person and I am placing an order, even if I have, let's say like 30, no, not 30, let's say if I have like 5 different things in my cart at a certain period of time, that's still going to count as one order. But then also within that, there's the number of orders as well, or the number of products rather. So like you have to take into account that the total sales are like the number of orders, but then within that you may have multiple products, which would affect your average order value depending on how much you're selling, let's say like one product for, versus if you have multiple products, that would change that up as well. Total revenue, you can always calculate that that would be like the dollar amount of those sales or orders that come in. So in this case, you have a $50 average order value. What that means is that you can just very easily take the $2,500 number divided by the 50 sales, and that would give you the average order value of $50 in this case. CPA is related to the ad budget or the media fees that you'll see above here. So in this case, all that you have to do is you just have to take your total media fees or ad dollars divided by your sales, and that will give you your CPA, which stands for cost per acquisition. There's a lot more complicated ways that you can go into this to make sure that, like, for example, some people will take out like their team fees or inventory fees as well to calculate separate things. But I think that like when you're just getting started out, these are just the simplest way to go about it. So you don't get confused. It's very clear and you can track over time how you're tracking to make your business a little bit more of a success. ROAS stands for return on ad spend. So that's your total revenue divided by that cost. So this is actually not calculated correctly. So the total revenue, that's what this would take into account this number. So this ROAS would be 1.14. Let me just pull this over to the other one so that they're all appropriately set up as well. And yeah, that makes more sense. So what I do in this calculation is you want to take into account all of your costs. So let's say you're paying yourself $500 just to maintain kind of the bare minimum of your company and your business, plus the inventory fees. If you'd actually get that in, your warehouse, that's a whole separate conversation of like using a distributor or where you're going to house the products. We can go into that separately. But in this example, let's just say you're running everything out of your own house. So you don't have any like extra fees. You're just paying for the inventory plus the ad cost. So I would take into account all of the costs for your to run your online store. All revenue would be how much revenue came in directly from your customers. So I think this is what a lot of people don't understand is that, especially when you're starting out, you're going to have a lot more fees to actually get everything up and running. Even like business licenses, or if you are operating as an LLC, I'm not a tax expert, but I'm saying if you are setting up an LLC, you're going to have a lot of costs up front to, number one, like set up your store so that you can sell online, but then also for the inventory and stuff. So like as you start to build up and get more revenue coming in, everything is easier just because, like I mentioned, there's always going to be more of an upfront cost that you have to take into account compared to, just one, like I said, like once you're rolling and you have more revenue coming in, which absolutely can happen, it just takes a little bit more effort and focus in the beginning. And you are going to lose money in most cases, unless you had a situation where you have like a viral product where it like just goes viral on TikTok, for example. And like you are only putting, let's say, like $2,000 into ads and you're getting 2,000 orders because you had like an influencer launch that, maybe was a friend of yours or something, you didn't have to pay them and you got a ton of orders from it. That would be the only case that you would be able to be like really profitable. The other way to think about this is that, let's say, for example, like in this case, the average order value is $50. So usually how it starts out is that your CPA and your average order value are pretty similar. But then as you are able to optimize your ads down and ramp up your average order value by adding in additional products, you usually are able to, ramp up the average order value, like I said, compared to the CPA. But this also depends on the price of the product. So let's say, for example, in this case, this is what I did in scenario 4, which you can see here. If you're, in this case, if you get 200 sales, but you're able to acquire like 20 grand in revenue, that means that your average order value was $100. So you could do that in 2 ways. One way would be by adding another product to it. The other way would be by simply like increasing the cost of the product that you are selling. So unfortunately, this is what a lot of like bigger companies will do, where you've noticed that they'll like cut costs in terms of like the inventory fees, where they will find a cheaper bottle that maybe is like less expensive, or they'll cheapen the products they're using and things. I would definitely recommend, like from a business perspective, you always want to hold the quality of your product as much as you possibly can, because your customers aren't stupid, right? They know if they're getting something that looks very cheap versus something that is actually like a quality product. So there's this delicate balance of managing, like I said, the quality as well as how much it's going to cost you so that you can ultimately have a profitable business at the end of the day. It's not a charity, you're looking to make money. So just to go into a few more ways that you can do that. So like I mentioned, you can try to increase your average order value. You also can reduce your CPA. So a lot of times media buyers talk about this, where they're able to optimize the ads that the CPA goes down and the ROAS goes up. I think in the industry, kind of like a 2x ROAS is baseline. I know, I've worked with a number of companies that have been able to achieve like a 5 to 10x ROAS. That's after a lot of money and a lot of time going into the ads. I think generally when you start out, the first thing is that you want to break even and get over a 1x ROAS. And then once you've done that, you can start to ramp everything up from there and then ultimately be more successful. So in this difference column, I didn't go into that before, but basically this is just showing how much money you would be making in the very basic sense, once again, if you were running your store. So basically in scenario 5, what you would need to do is not pay yourself too much when you're getting started. Make sure that your materials and all of that are not too expensive, but also are quality enough that your customers are going to be excited about purchasing them. Media fees, I think in general, I would recommend spending at least $5,000 on each platform in order to get enough learnings. For example, on Facebook, a lot of it is based off of how many conversions are coming through your pixel. So if you don't have, let's say you only have like 3 purchases or 5 purchases coming through that pixel every week, it's not enough data for Facebook to make good decisions about the people that are going to purchase your product next. So it's really important to acquire enough users that are going to take enough actions throughout your funnel so you can really track and ramp up and ultimately like make more money for your business. And then on the purchase side, so like I mentioned, average order value is really important. Bringing down that CPA and then increasing the ROAS are going to be the key things that you'll need to do if you're running your own ads. If you're working with someone, usually it would cost you much more than $1,000 for someone to run your ads. But if you were, you would want to take how much you're paying them into consideration. I would say if you are spending like over 5,000 and you're not a marketer yourself, even if you're spending, a couple of thousand, it is beneficial to work with an expert. If you're just starting out, you can work with someone on Upwork, or there's platforms like Maple. I'm actually a part of the Maple marketplace that connects you with marketers for a little bit of a more efficient cost. It's based off of the amount of money that you're spending on your ads every month. So in general, I would definitely work with experts, but just keep in mind, you would have to take that into account in these like either self-pay fees or your marketing fees. Because a lot of times, unless you have like a killer product, it's really hard to get these results by yourself. Like I said, if you're not a marketer. So yeah, this is really the scenarios that you would want to look at over time. So for this isn't actually an accurate, don't take this into account. Let me just hide this. But the difference, like I said, this like 10K mark is basically if you're looking to make that, and then once you have that amount of revenue coming in, then you can reinvest it in your ads for the next month and then just ramp everything up from there, which is a whole separate conversation. So take a look. If you'd like to get a copy of this, just shoot me a comment below and I can send you the link to it. And if you have other e-commerce questions, Facebook ads, Google ads, general like business, online business strategy questions, definitely let me know.